second thing is that Trump has a severe personality disorder called malignant narcissism. Now, I'm sure it's a surprise to no one to think of him as narcissistic, right? He knows more than everything about everybody from watching cable TV. He's his own best advisor, and only he can fix it. But malignant narcissism is far more toxic than simple narcissistic personality disorder because it combines narcissism with paranoia, sociopathy, and sadism. It's a diagnosis that was introduced by Erich Fromm, who was a refugee of Nazi Germany. And it was his attempt to explain the psychology of Hitler, Stalin, and other dictators. He called it the quintessential essence of evil, a human monster. It's an actual psychiatric definition of a human monster. So the paranoia is evident in all of the scores of wacky conspiracy theories that he pushes, his constant sense that he's always a victim, his projection where he demonizes minorities, immigrants, the press, and anyone who disagrees with him. The sociopathy is evident in his constant lying, his breaking of norms and laws, his exploitation and violation of the rights of others, and his lack of remorse. Classic antisocial personality disorder. And finally, the sadism, well, he's been a bully since he was a kid. And he is statistically the most prolific cyberbully in history. I actually had to write an introduction to a book about his tweets. It made me sick. I had to read hundreds and hundreds of these vile, disgusting attacks on various people. Now the thing is, Americans are very optimistic people. So everybody believed that he was going to pivot, right, and become more presidential once he got the nomination or once he won the election. Well, Erich Fromm told us to expect the exact opposite, that when malignant narcissists gain power, they become dramatically worse, because then they drink their own Kool-Aid, and the reality has supported their grandiosity. And now their grandiosity becomes inflamed, they become even more certain of their brilliance and of their invincibility, more certain that anyone who opposes or even impedes them is an evil obstacle to be removed. They feel absolutely no compunction about destroying anyone who gets in their way, or even destroying anyone who just doesn't seem to love or admire them enough. You know, Kim Jong-un had his uncle murdered because he didn't clap loud enough at a speech that he gave. Sort of reminds me of Trump saying it's treason that the Democrats didn't clap at the State of the Union address, or the way in which his cabinet members have had to fall all over themselves to compliment him. So that's bad enough. But when we combine that with cognitive decline, okay, some of you have maybe had some elderly relatives or aging relatives, you've probably learned that whatever was bad about their personality before, right, when they start to decline cognitively, it gets worse. And specifically, pre-dementia has been associated with decreases in conscientiousness, decreases in impulse control, increases in paranoia, aggressiveness, and irritability. Oh, those are the personality traits he has his whole life. So those traits are only going to get worse. And finally, with malignant narcissism, the last point to emphasize is Erich Fromm said the malignant narcissists slide towards psychosis. They live on the boundary of sanity and insanity. So when he says he had the biggest crowd size, or that Barack Obama bugged his offices, these are classic, grandiose, and paranoid delusions. Some people wonder, is he crazy like a fox, or is he just plain crazy? The truth is, it's a bit of both. On a good day, he's just a sociopath lying to other people to manipulate them. But on a bad day, he's delusional and bending reality to fit his own fantasies and needs. What that means is in a moment of nuclear crisis, he might launch a nuclear attack because he's thinking under the influence of psychosis. He might push the button because he's laboring under a paranoid delusion. And finally, the last thing that is causing his mental health to deteriorate is the stress of the Mueller investigation. It's clearly driving him nuts, right? But more seriously, it's pushing him towards pushing the nuclear button. And why do I say that? Because the nuclear button would actually solve a lot of his problems. It would distract from his wrongdoing, it would rally the country behind him, and psychologically, and this is the part that's so important in terms of the malignant narcissism, it would transform his feeling of being a hunted victim of a witch hunt to being a victorious, omnipotently destructive conqueror. And because he is a malignant narcissist, he doesn't have any empathy or concern for the people he hurts. In fact, the sadistic part of him almost revels in chaos and destruction. So when you put these three factors together, his mental health is deteriorating, and every single day, we are getting closer and closer to potential nuclear Armageddon.